What if one of the largest economies in the world is on the brink of collapse, and the world is barely paying attention? Imagine a country with skyscrapers that now stand empty, once booming cities turning into ghost towns, and millions of families boycotting their mortgages in protest. Welcome to the reality unfolding in China. This isn't just about real estate, this is a deep, slow-moving economic crisis that could shake global markets, trigger social unrest, and test the very foundations of the Chinese Communist Party's control. Could China be heading toward an economic meltdown like the 2008 financial crisis, but on a much bigger scale? It all starts with the property sector. For years, China's real estate industry was the engine of its economic miracle. Developers built with breakneck speed, cities expanded rapidly, and buying property became the gold standard of investment for the Chinese middle class. It wasn't just shelter. It was status, security, and retirement all rolled into one. People poured their savings into apartments they often didn't plan to live in. Some families even bought multiple homes, betting that prices would always rise. But beneath this glittering facade, there was a ticking time bomb. Developers borrowed heavily to fund their aggressive expansion. One of the most infamous examples is Evergrande, a giant real estate developer that borrowed more than $300 billion. Yes, billion. It became the poster child for China's debt-fueled property boom. But when the Chinese government stepped in to curb reckless borrowing in 2020 through the Three Red Lines policy, the house of cards began to wobble. Evergrande defaulted, and its collapse sent shockwaves throughout China's financial system. Suddenly, other developers started to fall like dominoes: Country Garden, ChinaCrisis, all teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. These companies weren't just speculative builders. They were the economic lifeblood of hundreds of cities. Their projects touched every corner of the country. And then something unprecedented happened. Ordinary Chinese citizens decided they'd had enough. Frustrated by endless construction delays and undelivered homes, millions of people across more than 100 cities launched a mortgage boycott. They simply stopped paying their home loans. Think about that. Imagine millions of Americans refusing to pay their mortgages at once. The signal was clear: confidence in the real estate system had completely evaporated. The boycott was not just an act of economic protest, it was a direct challenge to the government's promise of stability and prosperity. The ripple effects are devastating. Nearly 70% of household wealth in China is tied to real estate. When that value plunges, consumer confidence and spending tank along with it. Banks are now saddled with bad loans. Local governments, which relied heavily on land sales to developers to fund services and infrastructure, are facing a cash crunch. And construction companies have halted work on millions of unfinished homes, leaving buyers in limbo. Some cities are trying to step in by finishing projects themselves or offering bailouts, but the scale of the crisis is overwhelming. So how did things get this bad? At its core, China's growth model was built on overbuilding, overborrowing, and overpromising. The government encouraged it because it drove GDP growth, created jobs, and urbanized the population rapidly. But this model is now broken. And here's where things get even more complicated. The Chinese government is in a bind. On one hand, it wants to prevent a complete collapse of the property market. On the other hand, it fears bailing out bad actors will encourage more reckless behavior. So it's trying to strike a delicate balance, rolling out small stimulus measures, urging banks to lend to struggling developers, and even encouraging local governments to buy unsold housing stock. But these piecemeal solutions are like putting a bandage on a bullet wound. And while the government dithers, the social fabric is fraying. Unemployment among Chinese youth is surging, with some estimates suggesting over 20% of young people are jobless. Disillusionment is growing. Many graduates are taking jobs far below their qualifications, or simply giving up. Some call themselves the lying flat generation, opting out of the rat race entirely. In a society that long promoted hard work and success through diligence, this cultural shift is profound. Meanwhile, the once powerful narrative of a rising China is starting to unravel. Foreign investors are pulling back. International firms are re-evaluating their China exposure. The yuan is weakening. And the Chinese stock market has lost trillions in value over the past year alone. In short, confidence, both domestic and global, is slipping away. And here's where the danger multiplies. Economic instability is one thing. But when it starts to threaten political legitimacy, the stakes skyrocket. The Chinese Communist Party has long tied its authority to delivering prosperity. If that promise is broken, what comes next? Will the government double down on control, surveillance, and nationalism to maintain its grip? Will it lash out externally to distract from internal chaos? Or will it finally be forced to confront the unsustainable flaws in its economic model? Some believe China could nationalize large parts of the real estate sector, turning unsold housing into public rentals, or absorbing bad debt into state-owned financial vehicles. Others argue the government may simply let certain firms die off, hoping to clean house before rebuilding. But there's a catch: the longer they wait to act decisively, the deeper the rot spreads. This crisis isn't just about China, it has global consequences. China's demand for raw materials like steel, cement, and copper has already declined sharply. Countries that export to China, especially in Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, are feeling the chill. Global supply chains are being reshuffled. And central banks around the world are watching closely, aware that a financial shock in China could ripple outward. But perhaps the biggest unknown is the Chinese people themselves. Will they continue to endure, protest quietly, and adapt? Or will growing anger over corruption, failed promises, and economic hardship spill into the streets? History teaches us that great empires rarely collapse with a bang, they unravel slowly, eroded from within. Could that be what we are witnessing now in China? It's easy to think of China as an unstoppable force, an economic juggernaut that always finds a way to bounce back. But this crisis reveals just how fragile the foundation really is. And unlike past downturns, this one strikes at the heart of China's economic engine, the belief that property is always a safe bet. That belief is now shattered. In the coming months, all eyes will be on Beijing. Will the government launch a sweeping rescue package, or will it continue with cautious half measures? Will Xi Jinping admit mistakes, or will he tighten his grip further in a bid to preserve control? The answer could determine not only China's future, but the future of the global economy. So the next time you hear news about China's housing crisis, remember, it's not just about empty buildings or falling prices. It's about trust. It's about power. And it's about whether the world's second largest economy can find a way out of the mess it built for itself. And if it can't, what happens next? Will China's leaders be forced into reforms they've avoided for decades? Could this crisis trigger a broader financial reckoning? Or is this just the beginning of a much larger story, one that the world has barely begun to understand? Make sure you stay tuned, because what's happening in China today might just rewrite the rules of the global economy tomorrow. And we'll be here to break it all down for you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want more deep dives into the world's biggest financial and geopolitical stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.